Mr. Did I call you Mr. Duffy 81 or Jameson?
You could call me Jameson.
James. All right. All right. I like Mr. Duffy better. Jameson, welcome to the Edge broadcast, man. Hey, I love it when we have somebody from the chat on the program.
Well, thank you for having me. I know I've been blocked a few times by Jade, but she's kind enough to always just temporarily let me back in. So thank you for having me on the show.
All right. Well, good to have you, man. So we're talking about we'll be talking about your unscripted podcast, and man, it looks like you've got an extensive history, and I love the pictures you sent ahead of the program, and we'll be showing some of those, and I've got some interesting things to show you on the program. But I always like to, you know how I like to do things. What got you started in looking at cryptids to begin with?
Well, actually, Bigfoot was the first thing that I looked up when I got a laptop and I got on YouTube. But, you know, after years of armchair research and looking at stuff, I actually got inspired by the Utah Sasquatch channel, this guy named Rio, who did a project Go and See, where he was challenging people to go out there and actually look and see in your area if you can find this evidence and see what you think of it yourself, instead of maybe judging his evidence. Find your own and see what you think of it. So that's what kind of got me inspired and starting to go out. And one day I just said, screw it, I'm going to do it. And I found a structure my first time out. It was the middle of the winter, and I went hiking out up to my knees up this old ski area out in Conifer, Colorado. Pardon me. I'm originally from New Hampshire. But yeah, I got all the way to the top, didn't find anything, went all the way to the bottom. And I was amazed that I actually found a structure, took some pictures, documented it, and that was in 2017. And I've been off to the races ever since then.
So what type of structure did you find?
Well, it was like a teepee structure, you know, where there's maybe 20 or 30 sticks all placed up to an apex. And it seems it's a commonality that people find kind of as they're doing this research. And there's some people that are skeptical of it and don't necessarily think it's Bigfoot. But having done this for 5 years, I would say without a doubt it's definitely Bigfoot building them.
It seems to me that if I saw a structure out in the forest, I'd think some kind of like kids did that or something. How can we know that it wasn't built by humans?
You know what? I've actually filmed a Sasquatch at night with a thermal in one of these structures that I found a eaten duck wing in. So I mean, that's getting closer and closer to finding out the truth. But I find their footprints around, and they just have like telltale signs and little things that they'll do, including putting human items into these structures to create sort of a sense of plausible denial to the person who finds them, so that you might say, God, that's odd. Mm-hmm. But then you say, well, there's like Snickers wrappers and there's a empty bottle of water there or a beer can. Right. So like probably people made it, even though you can even find instances where this stuff's been collected from around the forest and placed in there. But, you know, like I said, there's different levels of evidence and different levels of believability for people. So yeah, there's a good example of one that I don't see people building those, because one, it would probably be a hindrance for the public, and that's at a state park. The rangers aren't going to just let you build something like that without probably coming over and saying anything. But I got a funny story about that. A friend of mine was down at that park, and he went up to one of the rangers and he says, hey, I know you're building these things at night. And the guy says, yeah, me and Sasquatch. So, you know, I think they know. And I think they're definitely around, and they're actually a lot closer to humanity than one might think until you start doing the investigations and following the evidence. And I don't care where you pick up the trail, you can trace it all the way back to the suburbs, and you can trace it all the way back to the vast wilderness. Mm-hmm. And if it connects through waterways and greenbelt areas and such, then there's a good chance that the Sasquatch could be traveling into your area. Mm-hmm.
So here we have one of these structures in the snow, and my question is, so would you expect that a Sasquatch goes in there and sits down and builds a fire and does whatever he does in there?
That's a great question. I don't necessarily think it's for that purpose. One explanation that I heard given by somebody who I trust very much said that the reason that they build the same structures and the same types of structures over and over is that it's them paying homage to their creation story, which I thought was a very interesting, very vague answer, but it could explain a lot of things, because I even have a theory that they might be building certain structures at certain times of the year based on my findings and findings of people in North Carolina and all across the country. And at the same time, we will find similar things. I even found a stick jammed right into a log the same exact day that Kelly Shaw of the Rocky Mountain Sasquatch organization found that same piece of evidence out in western Colorado, and I'm here in the suburbs of Denver in the foothills. So it was just interesting that on the same day, possibly, or the same time of year, or whatever it is, that these things seem to be appearing. And I can't prove that theory, but I see more and more things leaning towards that could possibly be true, at least with some of them. I'm not sure about the teepee, because I mean, people see them in orb form. For all I know, they go in there and dematerialize, because I've had some strange happenings with these creatures, and I'm convinced that they're not just existing in the physical. I know that sounds strange, but there are things that are beyond explanation that have happened that I just have to think possibly these things are somehow spiritual in nature.
And by the way, joining us in our live chat is Stephen Fleming, the King's Bride, Truth and Treasure, Raul Sanchez, and Bear. Mr. Duffy, you recognize all those names, I'm sure, so as people log in, we'll recognize them in our live chat. By the way, if you have a question for Jameson Duffy, just click on the one of the chats in the YouTube chat, or at the top of the website there, it says guest question, and then you can send it in. So you're outside of Denver. Do you find that Colorado itself is, and you mentioned this, some spiritual context there, is Colorado itself kind of a thin place, a overall geographical area that allows for supernatural events for some reason?
Well, that's very interesting. I've never considered that Colorado has some exclusivity to that, but I mean, certainly I'm sure there's a lot of energy. People talk about the vortexes, and I know that elevation could do something possibly. I do find a lot of structures that when I'm really far out in the woods, where the benches kind of come down and flatten out, and there'll be ravines on either side, and maybe on that high point of the land, I'll find them utilizing that. But that's a really interesting question, Daniel. I don't really know how to answer that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've had firsthand conversations with people who have seen Bigfoot, and I've got also anecdotal stories as well. Personally, I haven't seen him, but over time, I've heard some things that seem to be just out of vision that my common sense tells me is not a forest animal of any kind. I've been out in the forest enough to recognize the basics here, especially here in Indiana. But outside the state, I've heard some stuff too that does not lend itself toward normal animal behavior. But so over time, I've kind of adjusted myself to be looking around. Now, you show the teepee structures, and of course there's a lot of horror movies that you see where there's like some witch or something living in the backwoods, and they hang these little things from trees, or make structures maybe similar to that, but more kind of like scarecrowish. So I have a tendency to look for those things, and like if I see a tree that's broken, snapped 8 feet in the air, I know that that's not a normal thing. That's not a wind thing. That's there's something going on. So I'm kind of got an eye out for it. No, you think if I keep an eye out for it, Jameson, that I'm likely to see something?
I honestly do. If you can find these areas, even if you start kind of near the waterways, or if you can find a structure in the area, that'll be a telltale sign that that's a good place to start looking. But they seem to make these ground glyphs, I've noticed. Like they'll have, I don't know if it's their signature, I don't know if what it is, but they'll play with sticks on the ground. They'll make odd shapes. They'll do very strange things with sticks. Recently, I found a stick that was broken in half, and then another stick that was like this long. I mean, it was a pretty big thing in the trail. I looked to the right and I saw a dead snake there, and it was really weird. But I thought that the glyph might have alerted me to the snake. It was kind of all, put together for me. So that again in the picture is I'm not sure if that was a depiction, a map necessarily of the mountain that I was climbing, and like a bird's eye view of it. But I've found another similar thing to that. I wish I sent you the picture that I depicted as a map. And I found it at a gifting area that I had where they actually built the trail even deeper into the woods. And it ended up kind of encroaching upon this area where I had a basket hung in a tree that was at a 45-degree angle onto another tree in the woods. And at that location, when I went and realized that they had taken my basket down and removed this kind of little makeshift gifting area that I made, that glyph was a different glyph was on the ground, and I interpreted it as a map. So that one, I wonder exactly what that was, but I think Sasquatch probably made that out in the woods.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of actually more tends toward what I was just describing, like a witch, like a hex somebody trying to put on there. Me and the wife was down in Arkansas, and somebody was taking weeds and making X's out. We were way deep in the forest, and somebody was making X's out of weeds, and it was unnatural. And this is like you recognize when things aren't natural. Okay, if you see that, you know that the sticks didn't fall out, the wind didn't whip them up, and they fell down. You know there's a hand there, whether it's a supernatural hand or a hairy hand or a human hand. You know somebody's out there doing it. And so I always find it interesting when you're way deep in the woods and there doesn't seem to be anybody else around, what actually that comes from. Now, you mentioned just a second ago, Jameson, about this. I think we were talking about this here. What is this?
Yeah, that picture came to mind. I was hoping you were going to bring that up. That is, that's a yearling, a newborn deer. And if the top section is the back left leg with the hip socket intact, including part of the tail, and the bottom is the front left leg, I determined, I believe. And so something killed a baby deer and left that. And right next to that, it's funny you brought up, fireplace and sparking a fire concerning those teepee structures. There was what I call a fake fire pit right next to that, where they seem to make the circle of rocks. They do this often. I found dozens upon dozens, and they'll put sticks in there, and it'll never be lit. It will never have any charred remains of fire in it, but it's always like ready to blaze. And I find tons of them. I found a picture of one right outside a ranger station. I don't know if I sent it to you. It's got some birdseed in the picture, but I mean, it was comical because a friend of mine sent me a picture and was like, dude, look at this. Well, I'm like, where is that? And he's like, right there by the ranger station.
Is this picture up here? Is this one you're talking about?
No, there's another one. I probably didn't send it to you, but I mean, I find so many of them. I didn't want to bombard you, and that I realized I could have sent you probably a lot more pictures.
Well, let me get back to that one there, because I have seen that. Let me see where I can't even remember what one where I had that at. Anyway, this isn't here? No. Anyway, let me get myself back here and get you back on the screen here. All right.
Don't worry about it. I want to tell you I love the background, by the way, Daniel.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So round circles, I have found those in the forest, and I understand that witches also make stone circles.
Isn't it interesting? I don't know a lot about witches, and I'll be honest, I try to avoid witches at all costs. So if somebody tells me they're a witch, I tell them have a nice day.
I always say witch. A good witch, or are you a bad witch? All right, on the Newsmaker line tonight is Jameson Duffy, a.k.a. Mr. Duffy 81. If you have a question for the good Mr. Duffy, just put it in the live chat or the link at the top. By the way, Jameson, as you saw, we do have a poll as the esteemed guest tonight. And so the question is, what is Bigfoot? And here's the results on that so far. 56% say interdimensional being, which I think you just sort of suggested. Then the North American wood ape. I've heard people talk about that. Hey, you've been the program for a long time anyway. Do you remember we had a guy on that said there's absolutely nothing supernatural whatsoever about Bigfoot?
Oh, I think that's every other person that's ever talked about him. But yeah, I mean, I'm sick of hearing that, because it's like you witness denial at some point. You know what I mean? When too many people are having these experiences, you can deny it all you want, but it doesn't matter if you stick your fingers in your ear. The story that I'm telling is the same over and over. So,
So yeah, I mean, because somebody said, well, where's the body? Well, you're not going to have a body if these things are interdimensional. And there's been enough stories where people say they physically they saw him just disappear, just walk into nothing. I think even David Pilates said that he had a story where somebody was walking and they nearly walked into a portal on a path. And so, and I'm sure that the Indians believe there are portals all around. And it seems to me the government industrial complex probably got them mapped out somewhere or another. And what we'll find on those is, off limits in this area, because this is a nature preserve now, in other words, it's preserved for them, but it's not preserved for the people paying for it. So I think they know more than they're letting on anyway.
I'll say this. I think that it is very possible to get a body, and I think that many bodies have been sequestered in various ways, including shooting them and them being hit by cars. And that's just me listening to podcasts and hearing different stories and people's testimonies. But I'll tell you this, there's definitely a cover-up. And even if you shoot a body and you sell the body and you have financial backers, and it's never going to come to the light of day. You're going to end up doing a hoax, and they're going to make you discredit yourself to collect that paycheck. So there's a whole scheme involved in it that you don't even want to really get involved with, because that becomes the government cover up, and that's some pretty dirty world.
So what we're looking at here is something that obviously is fashioned into a circle and hung on a stick of some sort. Again, would you say that's a Bigfoot possibility?
Most definitely, and that stick, was stuck into the ground for one, like a shepherd's hook. And I actually currently, own that that circle there of sticks that they wove together. It's in a box in my storage unit. But I have different things like a Sasquatch casting, of a little foot, not a giant creature, but this is from the mud where I've determined that these things have been walking. And so I'll take a plaster cast if I can get the substrate to give a cast that good.
Okay,
that's pretty darn good.
All right, Jameson, hold that up, back it up a little bit towards your face, back it up a little bit, okay, and up a little bit towards the top of your head, and maybe down a little bit. I'm trying to get you centered up. No, go back the other way, horizontal. This is interesting, and a little bit to your right. Okay, right there. Okay, that's perfectly in the frame. Okay, you can put that down now. Let me show you a picture, and you may have seen this because I may have pulled this out on another show. But this is a footprint that I saw at Yellowstone, and I'm going to bring that up right here, and it looks exactly like that. Let me see if I can find it. That's Bigfoot. That is not the Bigfoot. That is not the Bigfoot there. Let me find out where this thing is. That's not it either. Where is my Bigfoot here? I'm trying to find what my own picture here, because I got it in with your stuff here. Let me see if I can find it here.
That's right. I think we're all being entertained, so
yeah,
good show.
Here. All right, Bigfoot. Maybe this is it here. All right, there it is right there. Bingo. That looks exactly what you just showed.
I mean, that looks like a five-toed impression. I will say that. It's a little washed out, but it's even these things. They go so deep into the substrate, Daniel. I'm 200 pounds and my foot is a size 13. Mm-hmm. I'll put my foot next to these things and they're sunk in 4 inches and I'm sunk in 2 centimeters. And I'm thinking, how heavy are these things with a size 9 that they're sinking, 6 inches into the mud?
Mm-hmm. Well, somebody knows that they're there, because in this picture here is a side view of that. And those are human footprints, probably from the rangers right there. You can see the human footprints right there, especially up to the right. But then you can see the actual Bigfoot, and maybe a juvenile Bigfoot. But again, that shows you in the context of that size of that foot versus an actual shoe. And so talk about impressing down into the mud. The shoe didn't, but the footprint did.
Impressive impression.
So I was not expecting that myself. And by the way, speaking of Yellowstone, terrible things going on out there. Is that all just weather related, or you think somebody's trying to knock out Yellowstone?
I did wonder how it's flooding. It makes me kind of curious. I don't trust anything that I hear on the news, so I haven't really been investigating it otherwise. So couldn't tell you, but skeptical, I'll tell you that.
Okay. All right. So we can get. And let's see, we get now. This is one of your pictures here, and tell us about that.
I believe that to be a juvenile handprint, and it might not have been inadvertently left there, because I do believe that they will leave a handprint and a footprint on occasion as a signature to something that they've created. There was some sort of stick creation or ground glyph just to the right of that, out of frame. But I thought it was a great capture of that little hand, and it was in an area right along the Platte River.
Well, when you talk about cryptids and why, and say somebody says that Bigfoot doesn't exist. You know, it's always part of a running joke. You know, there's no such thing, and you're delirious. You saw a monkey, and all the various. Maybe it was swamp gas in the form of a silhouette of a ape or something. You know, and they just come up with the most ridiculous things. But it is possible that you could say the same thing about ghosts. A lot of people have had ghost interactions, and you can say to that person, "Well, where's the ghost?" You know, go to the house. Where's the ghost? I don't see no ghost. Well, you know, it doesn't work like that. And I'm thinking, if Bigfoot was a terrestrial being with no interdimensionality ability, then you're going to see it. Somebody's going to see it a lot more than that. And of course, you saw I flashed up the Patterson video. That thing. So when you see the Patterson thing, you're thinking, well, there you go. That shows you it's a terrestrial being, but we don't know where he went, and nobody's seen him since.
Let me tell you an interesting story. I was married for 5 years, and I'm no longer married, just about finalizing a divorce. But I was married to a really nice woman, and we had a nice relationship for a time. And when we first were married, my wife was laying down on the bed, and I was on top of her, and I had my hands on her wrist, and I gave her a kiss, and I was getting up. And she said, and I said, "Oh, did I hurt you?" And she said, "Oh, no. It's okay." And I was like, "Okay, well, that's fine. You don't want to tell me, or maybe I did." And I was thinking, wonder what that was about. Well, she came to me a couple days later, and she said, "You know, the other day when you were asked me if I hurt you," she's like, "I actually saw something." And I had to call my mother and ask her if these things were real, because I didn't realize you were so into Bigfoot. But when you bent down and kissed me, she's like, "I saw these two Bigfoot walk through the wall, and in the semi-transparent form, walk behind you, and then they went through the wall." And I'm like, okay, that explains why when I left the room, the front door was wide open, and I'm in the bedroom with my wife, and I'm meticulous about keeping the door locked because I don't want to be like the victim of a home invasion, and I'm just, on top of my security. So I'm like, how did my door get unlocked? And I'm like, this is so weird. And then she tells me that story days later, and I'm thinking, these things walk through the wall? And I'm like, did they also open the front door? Like, I don't know how to explain that, but that is an absolute true story.
Wow. Very, very good. And by the way, welcome in our live chat. Unscripted Podcast just jumped in the live chat. So if you have a question for our guest, Mr. Duffy, then go ahead and put it in the live chat, and we'll get it over to you. All right, so I have got some audio. This is recent, and I'm going to jump out of the picture, and because there's a video sort of comes with it. It's rather still because I don't think the wind's blowing or it's a solitary thing. But it's about 30 seconds or so. Let's go ahead and just let it play, and then we'll get your opinion on it. What do you think about that, Jameson?
Very, very impressive. Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of power behind that, mm-hmm. And there were a few different sounds coming out of that. I have not heard anything quite like that. I did record in the state of Maine what would be considered the Ohio howl, a call like that. But it was from a mile or two away. You could tell it was from quite a distance, but that audio there had quite a bit of power. That is pretty interesting. I haven't had them. Haven't heard anything like that in the woods of Colorado. I'll say that.
Well, I believe that was taken in Georgia. So, and then they've got a lot of woods down there. It seems like wherever a lot of woods are is where they're at. But that doesn't necessarily is not the only indicator. They've been seen in the wide open range of Oklahoma and other places. And of course, when you get into the abominable snowman, you'll see maybe one going up a hill somewhere, and in the snow. I don't know if they hibernate or not, but it does seem that they're generally in the heavily forested areas. Is that your conclusion as well, or no?
Well, I think the larger creatures are, but I do notice that I don't think they're always with their young. I think at a certain age, once the young can take care of themselves, they start to venture off, and I find a lot of what I consider to be juvenile activity closer to the suburbs and even within the city limits. I've had two sightings of these creatures. They've both been of juveniles. Well, actually, I filmed one on thermal, so I guess I don't know if you could count that as kind of a sighting. But I've had one daytime and one nighttime sighting, and they've both been smaller in stature. I would say under 6 feet tall, definitely. So smaller, maybe 4 or 5 feet tall at the most.
What would you describe a manimal cryptid?
I love that name. Let me just say, Wayne Tetherow came up with that's his moniker, Manimal. But I did an interview on Manimal, and that's how he and I kind of got together. But a Manimal, yeah, part man, half part animal. I mean, Melba Ketchum and the DNA study that they've done kind of says that it's an unknown primate father with a human female mother, which sounds, kind of crazy, but we don't really know what these creatures look like, and there's all different reports of them. So it's just like a dog. You could say a dog attacked me. What was it? It was a little ankle biter, or it was a mastiff and it took me down and got me by the throat. You know what I mean? So it's vague if you say it was a Bigfoot. What was it? Was it huge? Was it small? Was it skinny? Was it large? Because they're reported as being all different types. So I find it so interesting to think, yeah, what are these things? But the fact that they might be part human is the most interesting aspect of it all. And yet that's what maybe allows us to have communication and a relationship with them.
So do reliable DNA samples exist?
Well, that's a good question. I've got a hair sample right here that I found.
All right.
And, I tainted it. I touched it. But that's a pretty big hunk of some red hair, man. And
Wow.
it's got stickers in it, like it has all the pricker bushes.
Yeah.
And there were some structures, some little ground structures right there. And if you could see this thing up close, I posted it on the UnsCryptid podcast Instagram page and also the Mr Duffy 81 YouTube page if you go back in the archives. But it's I do believe this to be a sample. Do I know any DNA specialists? No. Do I have the money to pay for it? Heck no. But I got it. That's more than most people can say, I'll tell you that.
So I don't know if you know, I got banned last week from YouTube for having Donald Jeffries on. So I'll be careful with the question I'm going to word here. But do you think some people, if they had their DNA tested today, they wouldn't test out as human?
Are we talking about the global elite? I'm not sure.
We're talking about people that have.
That was a joke.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess you know what I'm talking about.
There's Neanderthal DNA in most Caucasian people, but I'll even go. I don't know that Caucasian people came from the same line that African people came from. I think there's a lot of confusion in the genetic line. I think science is a big cover-up. I think the institution of science makes a mockery of the scientific method. So, I know that the truth is never going to get there because they want to promote the idea of evolution. But I'll tell you this, Daniel, no one kind of creature has ever became another kind of creature. I don't care how long you sit here on the planet. A monkey's not going to turn into a human. A human's going to turn into a monkey, and you can watch it for thousands of years, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't spontaneously happen, and that whole idea to me is hooey, bogus, and bunk to the core.
Okay, Jameson, I may need to clarify that question then. And I'm going to defeat YouTube's algorithm with this one. Okay, I'm going to defeat them. These people, if they tested out today, would their DNA match that of a human?
You talking about cryptids, you mean?
No, a person. I'm just being careful. A person who got something in a certain place.
Now I understand what you're saying.
Right, so I'm defeating YouTube algorithm right here.
No, I mean, do I think it's the mark of the beast? That's a
No,
good
no,
question.
I'm just asking, would they test out as human? If it went to a lab, would that, if that person's blood, would it test human, you think?
I think it would, but let me elaborate on this, because what I think is actually happening is that these people are becoming property via their DNA. I've heard it explained, and I haven't done enough in-depth investigation, but pretty much you're becoming a lab rat and you're volunteering your DNA to, it's just, look at how Monsanto can have their DNA, go to your cornfield, and then they sue you and take your land, and it's just the corruption is there. So they're spreading their whatever around, whatever it is, whatever's man-made, whatever it is. And yeah, I mean, you don't want it. Let's put it that way. Eat healthy and cleanse your body, and be careful, because I don't even know. There's people say the 5G's giving it to you. People say it's in the shot. Man, it's a scary world out there. You're better off out in the woods with Sasquatch than you are in the city, I'll tell you what.
So, since we're along that strain, you mentioned 5G. That has been suggested as to what happened to 10,000 cows out in Kansas. Do you have any speculation on that from the Unscripted podcast point of view?
I'll tell you, I walked close to one of these fake trees that they have to make a video of how bogus it is that these 5G towers, or whatever, these huge cell towers, they're making them like fake trees. And my head hurt walking close to that thing. I had to back up. And I don't think it's safe for people to be around. And this technology is possibly dangerous, and it's full speed ahead,
it's
as
interesting.
always.
Just in the pre-5G world, when they were saying it's coming, they're getting ready to roll it out, I remember people were saying they already had evidence that cows dropped dead when they turned it on. Do you remember that?
Actually, I have. I mean, look at all the birds dropping out of the sky. That's always been my kind of theory. Or what else could be going on? I mean, there's military experimentation, but it just makes you wonder what is going on in this world.
Well, now,
it really does.
when it comes to birds falling out of the sky, there's another hypothesis, and it was displayed in the movie Alien Abduction. And what happened was there was a mothership up there, and a flock of birds ran into it and killed them all, and they just fell down. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, they want to blame the aliens for everything. But if you really know, the humans and the aliens are interacting in the underground military bases, and that's the question that needs to be asked: is what's going on, and what are they doing behind closed doors underneath the ground?
All right, welcome in the live chat, King's Daughter and Glavis Kravitz Jr. Welcome to the show. We're talking to Jameson Duffy about cryptids. He's a Bigfoot researcher, overall cryptid enthusiast. We have a link to your website, the Unscripted podcast, there at the bottom in your bio there, and so it looks like you've been collecting evidence, Jameson. So has your belief in the existence, do you feel like you have been vindicated with your findings?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, just the evidence alone that I found, not concerning having a sighting, is amazing. I set out, when I started doing it, I'm like, I'm going to film a Bigfoot. I bought a Sony Handycam, and I'm like, I'm going to be in the woods. I'm going to film one of these things. I ended up filming one. I filmed two. I don't know if it's the same one twice. I filmed it by accident when the camera was panning around when I was jumping over some wet logs that were at like a 45-degree angle, and I didn't want to slip. And then it was between a tractor that was going down another logging road and me. And this was in New Hampshire. And then I heard something as it was snapping all around me the whole walk through the woods. But I lifted the camera up at one point, and it goes across the screen, and then it leans out from the waist, and you can see it. It's probably 90 yards away or so, but it's a pretty good capture. It's interesting.
So you saw movement?
Yep. And then, in fact, it followed me back to the house, and we ate dinner, and then my wife went into the bedroom to change her shirt, and when she looked up, the Sasquatch was actually looking at her, running away with its head turned, looking at her kind of at the side of its eye, smiled at her, and then booked it across the backyard, ran behind my back. My back was to the sliding glass door. My great aunt was talking to me. She screamed, put her hands over her head, and said, "Oh, who's that? What's that?" And I turned around, and I didn't see anything. And I looked at my wife, and she nodded, and I opened the door. I thought I was going outside to like fight somebody. I'm like, who's scaring my aunt? And then my wife's like, "Honey, it was Bigfoot." And I'm like, "Jesus, why didn't you tell me? Like, I just missed it." But I mean, I knew I was in the woods with him. Like, I was pretty scared.
Was this in Colorado?
That was in New Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
On a private property.
Okay, well, there's a lot of forest in New Hampshire, isn't there?
It's the second most forested state in the country.
Nice, nice. We Indiana, we actually have an amazing amount of forest in the southern half of the state, and what's called they call it the Little Smokies. It's not. It's just a bunch of hills, but it's pretty good. It's vast tracts of forested areas with some pretty major hills down in there, and there have been a lot of sightings down there too. There's this one certain highway I remember made one of the Bigfoot shows where a Bigfoot was running along the side of the road down there in the Hoosier Forest area, and so I'm always keeping an eye out and always keeping an ear out too. I tell you what, I've got a great video, and I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I'll either we'll comment on that, and I'm going to jump out of the picture here, and I'll take you out, and then we're going to play this, which I think is an amazing video I've never seen. What you're going to see is a drone view of a forest where something is in the forest moving some trees. This is a great video. Let me cue it up for you. Stand by. Here it is. Down there, and what's very interesting, James, I don't know if you can see, but one tree walks off. Can you see that? Did you see that?
Oh yeah.
All right, it may loop again. There it is, close up. That one tree just it literally walks away, and is this wind? Is this a hoax, or is this a Bigfoot marking his territory and taking the tree to build one of your structures?
I mean, the only thing that could do that is probably one of those machines that shake the fruit off the tree, and I don't even think it could do that.
Well, the tree that looks like it walks away is still straight up in the air.
No, I mean, I know they even have machines that can do amazing things concerning logging. I've worked in the forestry industry, and I mean, I think it's amazing what some of this machinery can do. But that is typical behavior of Sasquatch, and I've even been scared out of an area when I was with a friend of mine, and they stomped their feet and shook the trees, and it was pretty intimidating, I'll tell you that.
Well, that one tree is walking away, and if that wouldn't be a machine, because that machine would be hitting some of those other trees. That tree literally goes in between other trees. It's a fascinating video, and so you know, whether it's a hoax or not, I mean, you really never know. It was drone footage come out, but I mean, if it's a hoax, it's one of the best ones. Somebody was meticulous about it, because there was a tree in the middle of trees, going between trees, and I don't even have software. I use video software all the time. I don't have anything, and I never heard anything that could fabricate that.
Makes me wonder if that was a reaction to the drone, knowing that they were trying to see it. Very interesting to see if you could hear the backstory on that. But yeah, pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. All right, Gladys Kravitz says, Jameson, have you heard about the cryptids that the Navajo Nation has reported by the Navajo Rangers?
I don't know if you're talking about the Skinwalkers or not, but I'll just say I think the Skinwalker phenomenon is sort of like a satanic cult almost. I remember there was a story in the Brenton Solomon channel, maybe, you know, rest in peace, Brenton. My brother's name is actually Brenton, and there was a story about these people who talked about seeing these people putting this ointment on their skin and then doing this chant and watching an animal skin go right up the body kind of supernaturally, and watching these people become these animals. And I think the Skinwalker cult is very dangerous, and it's a completely different phenomenon than cryptids per se.
And also, along with you say, you know, you've have these Teepee pictures that you have of sticks and trees made in those configurations. There's also, I've seen a lot of videos of people going on the forest and seeing trees stuck up in trees horizontally, and they show you that it didn't fall down that way, and they show you that there's no root where it was pulled up. And those horizontal trees kind of reminds me maybe of this tree that we saw walking through the forest being carried off into the forest might have been on its way to be one of these elevated, or maybe one of these teepees.
Well, I think that was a sign of aggression. I'll tell you what, I don't think those trees went anywhere but wherever the hell they landed, because that was purely a sign of aggression.
Now, Bigfoot seems to be your main forte. Do you look into other cryptids?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, I'll tell you what, we're looking for people to come on the Unscripted podcast. So if anybody has had a story they want to tell, they can contact us on the website. But I went looking for Bigfoot before I had ever seen one, besides on video. And then you hear about these dogman creatures, and you hear about the little people, and you hear about people seeing pterodactyls. I have actually seen a little 3-foot green-skinned guy run across the road in front of me in Texas, and I was going like 80 miles an hour up the highway, and this thing was going the same speed across the highway, and it had like a robe covering it, and it had like a belt around it or something like that, and I saw the little pointy nose, and the hairline didn't start till about here, and it was right across this road. The arms and legs were moving so fast, but the torso and the head were clear as day, just right across the road. I saw it when it cut across the left-hand side of the road, and I focused my gaze on the yellow line. It happened right outside of Plainview, Texas, heading north on the interstate. And yep, that sucker ran right across the road in front of me. My wife woke up, she looked at me, and I was just like, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I saw something. And I wish to God I had a dash cam. And then, of course, I didn't learn my lesson about the dash cam then. I still haven't, because I was driving home a couple years ago, and I saw this giant 9-foot wolf-like creature, and I mean the hair was flying on the thing. Daniel, it had a mane. You see this hair right here? It had a mane of hair, bro. Like this extra hair like flowing off the back of it. But so when I first saw it, I went from right to left. It was coming across the road, and it only happened 2 steps. It was across the whole road in 2 steps. But I saw that the hair flowing, but I thought it was antlers as I went from right to left, and I saw how big the torso was, like a 50-gallon drum. And then I got to the back of it, and the back, it broke like a greyhound dog running a race. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a dog. And so I didn't see the tail, because I went back to the right, and I saw the mouth. It was open. It was kind of smelling and like breathing. You know how a dog like takes in the air to like smell what's going on, and it was doing that. It had its nose high in the air, and dude, 2 steps, this thing was gone. Scared the hell out of me. I went home, got my night vision scope, got a .357 revolver, and I sat there with my truck door open with the gun pointed, and I was trying to see if I could get this thing.
Okay, so now you are in Colorado, and a certain substance is legal in Colorado. Now, that substance don't have anything to do with your sightings, does it?
I never smoked any weed and saw anything weird in my life, I'll tell you that.
Wow, man. And neither did my favorite band, Rush. I'm so proud of them. All right, here's a question for you. Don't they make trees look like X places they sit under? I've even seen what looked like a star.
Well, that's interesting. I was going to tell a story about the shaking tree, because I found when I first started Bigfooting, this was my second time out, and I didn't know where to go, and I was looking at the map, and I was trying to figure out places, and there's this area that I wanted to go to, and I didn't know how to access it. I realized I could have hiked through Red Rocks Park up to the top of the mountain and back down and accessed it, but I ended up parking out in like Idledale, past Morrison, out in the middle of nowhere, and I hiked with no trail for like 5 miles through rattlesnake country. Man, I was crazy. I kept myself hidden. I took the advice of everybody else that was doing it, and I'm like, okay, if they have sentries, they're going to be looking out, so keep yourself hidden, stay in the brush and the trees. I get all the way out to the last field. I have to expose myself. I walk out, got my camera on, and as soon as I walk out in the field, I spend maybe 10 seconds, I'm looking around, and then the tree starts creaking, and it's a perfectly calm, sunny day. And I'm like, what in the frig? So I walk directly over to this area, and there's all these pine boughs that are ripped off in a 10-foot circle, and they're all laid down in front of maybe like a 10-foot Colorado blue spruce. And they have 2 trees like this, like totally barkless, totally stickless, like branchless, just like two trees in a triangle put up like that. And I think they were bedded down right below that. And I startled them, but the thing must have been right in the tree below me. I had the willies. I was walking through the woods, and I mean, I was like shaky. Like I could feel like my energy I was like, oh my God, like I'm in this place. Like I didn't know what to, it was only my second time out, but I definitely had the creeps the whole time. And then a storm was coming in, like it started to rain. So I ran down like 5 miles down this mountain, man. And I was right on the backside of Red Rocks, but I had to hike all the way down to the road there. So it was quite a hike. But yeah, I think they're out there, and they're definitely manipulating nature. Mm-hmm. And you know, they make beds like they say in Washington, and that some of those guys in the Olympic Project are finding those beds. I don't necessarily find that, but I've found some amazing stuff that I should have sent you every picture that's on my computer. I'll tell you that.
What is this structure right here?
That's gigantic, and I believe the Rangers ended up taking that down. That was like a friggin' city, man. I mean, when I came upon that, my mind was blown, because that's over near a brewery. There's some hiking and biking trails around. It's kind of in between the river and the biking trails. And I mean, it's just, I haven't seen a Sasquatch over there, but I find a lot of their structure evidence over there.
Mm-hmm. So isn't it true? You mentioned little people, and you just mentioned several creatures already. We're talking about Bigfoot. We're talking about Dogman. So if you take orbs, Dogman, Bigfoot, fairies, gargoyles, vampires, I mean, I don't know, a whole bunch of things, is it likely that with all these cryptid activities, that if somebody's paying attention, they're likely to see one of these types of creatures?
Yeah, and it's likely that they might have even seen one. And it happened so fast that they didn't even realize what they saw. Mm-hmm. I recently saw a juvenile Sasquatch right outside my home, and it took me all night to convince myself and to really I was in shock. And even when I first saw it, I'm like, what is this, a dog? And I'm like, what the hell is running up in the middle of the night? Mm-hmm. And then it was on all fours, and I walked up the side of the house on the back of the garage on the north side, and this thing was coming up from the south. So we kind of met in the front yard as I was coming into the driveway to go to my truck, and it was over like eating some corn or some apples or something. We feed the deer, and anyway, this thing was on all fours, man, and it froze when it realized I was looking at it. I kept walking towards it, but I pretended I didn't see it, and then finally it knew that I saw it, and it froze. And then I looked at it for a while. It put its head even further down, and I couldn't see any ears. And I'm like, where the frig are the eye sockets on this thing? And the shoulders were rounded like mine. And then I start going, what the hell? And then it turned. When it turned, like it was like it did this spider crawl thing, like they say. It just choom like this, just 180 real quick. But as it turned, I caught the eye shine, and it was on the bottom of the head. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, if you were doing a push-up, like your eyes are going to be down, like looking up like this at me. But when I saw that, I went into shock. Like, I got teary-eyed, and I'm like, no way. And it just, the back, when it walked away, the back didn't even move. It stayed parallel. It was just like, wow. It was so weird. And I chased it, but I was trying to turn the light on my phone first, because I was kind of scared, and I wanted to get a look at it with a flashlight, but I couldn't even get the light on because I couldn't take my eyes off it, because I couldn't believe the way it was walking. I was in disbelief. I'm like, no way. I'm like waiting for it to like undulate or like, you know, run or prance, or it just smooth as day all along the rocks. And
now see, you're describing typical animal behavior, because I have this skunk that's living on my porch, and friendly guy, and is albino, just all white. I've never seen anything like it. But one day, because I'm kind of tracking it, seeing what it's going to do, and it's in my daylilies, and it's looking right at me, and it froze. So see, it knew that I saw it. Right. And so that's like you said that, you know, they kind of freeze when you kind of make that animal to human connection. You know, I don't know if they're studying to get ready for the next move, probably trying to plot something like that. You got to watch them. So it has these cryptid sightings, and you're expressing some very, very human emotions and reactions to what you're seeing. Is it possible that people have actually seen something, but their mind tells them that can't possibly exist, blanks it out instantaneously, and they're just going down the trail?
It happened to me. I went down to visit a female friend of mine when I first moved back to the Denver area, and she lived like an hour away, and she's like, hey, come visit me, we'll go hiking at this park. And I went hiking with her at this place, and I'm like, let's go get some privacy. And there was a huge, like 20-foot cliff, and the trail went right up to the base of it and then went upwards and kind of went up an incline. And we went right up this crack in the rocks. We rock climbed right up to the top. And she sat down, and I looked behind us, and there were two, they looked like twins. I thought, but in my mind, I'm like, I got little brothers. So I'm like, these kids, I'm like, what are they doing? Smoking pot back here or something? And I'm like, I'll just give them some privacy. But like when they saw me, they froze, and then they both walked out of the frame sideways, staring at me the whole time. And I just kind of like gave them the courtesy and not staring them down. I kind of was like, there's some kids back there or something. But they were all black. They were dressed in all black. And she and I, did our thing. And I'm like, those were probably, because that park gets, I research it and I find Sasquatch evidence there now, and it's been researched by Mark Parra, who's with Sasquatch Investigation of the Rockies, and he's been researching that place for like 13 years and making videos, and it's just
Jameson,
I'm sure.
Jameson, you said that you took her because you wanted some privacy in the forest. What's going on out in that forest, man? What's going on out there?
I'm like a Bigfoot at heart, man. I want to get away from people.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you wanted privacy with the lady for. I don't know.
We were hiking, and there was like 10 people in front of us, so we were walking faster than them. And I was kind of like, here, screw it, let's let them keep going, and we'll just sit down and take a break. But it was a perfect time because we're right on their tail, and everybody's hiking up. And they probably turned around, and we just disappeared like a couple of Bigfoot.
Okay, all in the up and up. All right, now I'm going to show you another picture here. Again, I've showed it on a previous broadcast, but I want to show you because in case you missed that broadcast. But when I went up to Glacier National Park, I was at 7 miles south of the Canadian border at the last ranger station you find, and in that ranger station was this cast right here, which clearly. You see 3 casts there, and it looks like maybe a wolf on the left and maybe some kind of cat on the right. But that middle one there, what do you think that middle cast is?
I'm having trouble figuring out. That must be the toes gripping, because I thought their thumb sits a little farther down. But, I'm not 100% sure. Daniel, I've actually found, and I have a piece of mud, clay, that they gripped in their palm, and it left all the handprint impressions, and they set it down. So that looks like toe impressions to me, personally.
Okay, so you're saying that's actually a human footprint?
Well, no, I'm not. I'm saying look at how the toes are curling, and can we do that? I don't know.
I can't do that. My toes ain't that even, for one thing. That's kind of flat there. But yeah, so I thought, man, I thought there's no way. I got to get a picture of this thing here. And this really not far from a place called Pole Bridge. And Pole Bridge is a little town up there. The last town you get as you head north there in Glacier. And there's no power there, but there's a town there. And they've got a big Bigfoot statue right out the front. And I couldn't figure out whether they just put that statue out there for a joke or to antagonize people or to make them think or whatever. But then I go up a little further and I see this. I'm thinking, well, this must be Bigfoot country up here. And I would think Bigfoots would like to hang around where there's not human activity. Are we encroaching on their territory? Is that what's going on here?
Well, I mean, you're born into the world that you're born into, right? So if you're already born into a world where humans and Sasquatch are merging and interacting, it might not be so bad. But then if you're born way out in the wilderness and you're not used to human encroachment, so I think the Sasquatch around here are used to humanity, and they're born into the scenario where the forest is right outside, and because of the elevation, you really can't build too much, and there can't really be too much more encroachment into the western suburbs. So, but it's everything's relative, right?
Well, like UFOs, is there going to be an official disclosure on their existence?
Absolutely not.
Why?
I just don't, because there's been too many cover-ups. I believe there's already been bodies. I listened to recent episodes of the UnsCryptid podcast. I mean, I think that bodies have been harvested and that they just don't make it to the light of day. I mean, it's the whole, I'll bring it up, it's the whole Rick Dyer scenario and the shooting of the Bigfoot in San Antonio, Texas, and the fact that he went down there because of the 911 calls saying that the Bigfoot was behind the Home Depot in San Antonio, and he chose that spot after Rick had financial backers. There's a whole lot that we don't know, but he chose that spot. He went down. He was in the Shooting Bigfoot mockumentary that had two comical storylines, but the Rick Dyer story even shows one on the Shooting Bigfoot documentary. It shows the Sasquatch that runs out and hits Morgan Matthews, and Rick Dyer filmed the camper video. I mean, there's just so much evidence. This guy Muskie Allen, who was critical of him and said this is fake, got invited to Las Vegas and actually saw the body, recanted, changed his whole story, gives a 2-hour interview on the Facebook Finding Bigfoot channel before those guys get harassed and ran off of Facebook. And I don't know the whole story, but that's what I heard. But I mean, there's a lot of harassment that you can get. I'll just say it, man. I've had my life threatened by who knows whoever wants to give my wife a call and tell her that I should be shot and thrown in the river when she's down in Texas. But that's what happens when you're going after the truth, when you're critical of these hoaxers, when you're calling people out on the internet, when you're pushing buttons and poking, and somebody's going to come back and throw SHIT your way, Yeah. It happens.
Do you think the government has a rapid Bigfoot recovery force?
They sure seem to. They show up pretty darn quick. I don't know how they do it. I do got to commend them on that. I don't like them, but they are efficient.
So are you suggesting that they monitor channels and looking for the latest sightings to basically as a locator where their people should go?
Well, let's put it this way. With supercomputers and the amount of money they're stealing from the American public, they could have a whole army of supercomputers listening to every single phone call, every single transmission, every single word, analyzing every bit of data, and I don't doubt that they're doing that one bit. So, yeah, I mean, I just speak freely, and I have no fear anymore. I've been studying the corruption of government ever since 9/11. 20 plus years and running. I've been in Bigfoot since 2008, so I'm a little ahead of the Bigfoot curve with my political.
As you know, as I said, I got banned from YouTube for the Donald Jeffries interview, but I don't think it's because they're sitting around listening to it. I think their algorithms basically just picked up a couple words and hit, instantaneously said, hit this plateau, delete the video. Send the email.
Guaranteed. I uploaded a Columbine conspiracy interview that I have linked through my channel in the About section. But that video, I actually uploaded like a 2.5-hour interview with a guy just about all these conflicting statements that are in the redacted FBI documents concerning Columbine, and people mentioning there were more than 2 shooters, and in fact mentioning the exact name of who shot them, and it wasn't Dylan Harris or Eric Klebold. And that interview was flagged for violence and hatred within 24 hours overnight. So I thought, who flagged my video and got this taken off YouTube? But I was like, no, they already know me. I've been doing so much 9/11 truth work on the YouTube. So there's a lot of that.
There does seem to be an error or a glitch in the matrix with these people because they can't seem to do it live. It's when you save that video, especially if you try to monetize it. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. But if you don't save it, then their algorithms can't catch it. And so, if you want to get the truth out, you can do it that way and then put the archive video up on Rumble. King's Daughter says, Jameson, do you have a YouTube channel?
Oh, yes, Mr. Duffy 81. And I've been posting my Bigfoot evidence on there since 2017. And if you click on it, you can see the featured video, which is the Bigfoot that I inadvertently, but pretty clearly caught on camera in New Hampshire. And it's pretty compelling, in my opinion. It's got some good evidence.
Have you been approached by any of the TV producers about any of your information?
No, I don't know that I'd want to. It seems like the TV really makes a mockery of the Bigfoot situation. I think it would be very difficult for them and I to come to an agreement, and I'd have to have a lot of control and on the final cut and what I would even allow them to put out there, because I see what they do to the Finding Bigfoot shows and a lot of this other stuff, and I just find it very distasteful.
Well, let's go to the next step on this. Let's just say you said there probably won't be disclosure because of the way that information is handled these days. The truth is like the last thing you'll ever get. But let's just say that it comes out and they have one. And it's they say they're not going to put it in a zoo. They're going to put it in nice accommodations. They'll try to treat it right and study it and whatever. Just say it happens. How would that change the world?
Oh my goodness, how would that change the world? Unfortunately, I don't think it would change the world one bit. I think people are so they don't care about Bigfoot as it is, So they don't go in the woods as it is. What do they care?
Mhm.
That's how I. They What are they going to do about it?
Well, do you think
It's
that
like
would you
worrying about piranhas.
mhm,
They're out there. Oh my God, piranhas.
mhm.
So what? You know what I mean? That's how they're going to think about it.
well, wouldn't the enviro terrorist love it, because then they would start uh, taking vast tracts and declaring it Bigfoot habitat. Therefore, you can't go to Yellowstone anymore. You can't go to Glacier anymore. I mean, just say this is Bigfoot habitat. I mean, it'd be their dream if they found one, and it's to start cutting,
Well,
stopping
I
people.
agree with you because I've always said if they ever were to say that Bigfoot was real, it would strictly be to go along with the Agenda 2020, Agenda 2030, whatever it
Mhm.
is, getting people in the cities, getting people out of rural America, forcing them into affordable housing, being
Mhm.
corporate slaves. I mean, I see it happening in Denver and it's happening in every city across this country.
Mhm.
And you're completely right, Daniel. They could easily use Bigfoot Truth for that, but I don't see it happening because there's too much revenue being generated by the national parks for that to really interfere, in my
Mhm.
opinion. It's all about the money.
Well, I know the national parks got a lot of money in me paying for fishing licenses, so they'll be happy. They'll be, and they don't even let you. They don't even let you keep them, man. Catch and release, and you can't use a hook with a barb on it. You got to use a hook that it just falls. It just fish just falls off your hook anyway. So it's not a whole lot of fun when you're looking at it that way. Well, so yeah, you're talking about corralling people into affordable housing like that. Here in the Indianapolis area, there's a city to the east called Greenfield, and there's this whole sector, these gigantic buildings, the largest Amazon distribution centers there, the largest Walmart distribution centers there, Smithfield distribution is there. There's these gigantic warehouses are taking over all, and I think it's the number one development in the country as they're moving in off. It's right off of 70, and they're taking every farm field there is out there. And it seems to me that it's like an epicenter of some kind, and it just seems to go along with your point. And I mentioned in the Ranting Points talking about there's 99 documented cases of food distribution centers burning down to the ground, or planes crashing into them, or fertilizer trucks blowing up, whatever. And then we have the 10,000 cows that are just died for mysterious reasons, instantaneously, never heard of it before. But as the food supply dwindles, it just seems to me the what is supply is available is being singled down into these distribution warehouses, and if you have the right social score and government card, you will get your quota from them. It seems that they're doing these regional things for a projected time when they will have the only ones to be able to distribute the goods, because they won't be out at these small mom and pop stores anywhere, because they are doing this Agenda 21. What do you think about that?
Well, let me tell you who they are. They are the secret societies. And if you really want to know the game plan, you can study the work of Fritz Springmeier, and he'll
Mm-hmm.
easily explain to you how these secret societies run corporate America, and they've infiltrated the government, and they permeate every aspect of society, and they work together to turn the tides in their favor. And they're a parasitic organization that has infiltrated our country. And I don't care if you say George Washington was a Mason. He
Mm-hmm.
certainly doesn't care for the depiction of him sitting as the Baphomet with the head of George Washington in Washington, D.C. It's completely satanic. George Washington wrote that he hadn't been in a Masonic lodge for nearly 30 years because he was aware of the infiltration of the, quote, Illuminati. So I'm just telling you, it's pretty much the secret societies out there, controlled chaos, and they're destroying this country little bit by bit. And you keep voting for it, and you keep getting deceived, America, and it's pretty pathetic. It's time to give up the two-party system
Hmm.
and get to the truth.
All right. Well, it looks like your picture froze here. We're trying to get you back up on the line here. I don't know if I have to call you back. We've got a few more minutes left. Are you having any connection issues over there?
I can hear you, but yeah, I see my picture is frozen.
All right.
I don't know what you need me to do.
Well, I'll tell you what. We still got a few minutes left. Let me call you back. They'll probably clean that up.
Sounds good.
All right. All right, everybody. We're going to call Jameson back here in just a second here. And stand by. It looks like, or we got somebody listening, and probably more of the case, and don't like what they're hearing, because now we're getting into the real truth of the matter. Hello.
Glad to be back.
All right. Can you see me? Because I'm not seeing you.
Oh man. Well, I think they're watching, Daniel.
Yeah, man. Are we hitting hot button issues now, Jameson?
Telling you.
Well, I'm going to finish this with audio. I don't care.
I don't either.
All right. Well, we'll just finish it with the audio, because obviously there's something wrong with the video. I know it takes more bandwidth to run that. So we're talking about the Agenda 21, and it's. Let me ask you about this question here. This is getting a conspiracy 101. We're talking about cryptids, and when I think of cryptids, I think of Bill Gates. Interesting how he's now in the business of developing artificial baby formula. And he's also in the business of developing artificial meat. And all of a sudden, all of the meat is being burnt up or killed. I mean, is that some kind of shocking cryptid coincidence?
Not really, Daniel. We're sitting at the casino with the mafia, essentially, and we're down to our last ship. And it's really up to us to realize the game is rigged.
Well, Jameson, what can one do knowing they're in a game that is rigged?
You got to demand fairness, and you have to demand prosecution. They don't have district attorneys and federal prosecutors man enough to prosecute the secret societies for treason, because they're at the Masonic lodges and at the Jesuit lodges, and this stuff needs to end. You got to get these people out of power, and you have to expose them. And these are people who are in, like I said, all facets of society. It could be the producer of a TV show. It could be, who is the gatekeeper? That's essentially what it is. A certain host of a certain late night talk show could be the one who's a Jesuit affiliate. You just never know. But you have to expose these people for their secret societal affiliations, and expose the Jesuits and the Freemasons, and pretty soon the house will come tumbling down.
Mm-hmm. For those of you who just joined the program, we have on our newsmaker line Jameson Duffy, who we've lost the video feed, but he's still on the line. So their algorithms, Jameson couldn't defeat the program. We're still processing additional truth and information. And I always find it interesting when technical glitches, quote, glitches happen, at what point do they happen? And we happen to be talking about centralized distribution centers and control the food supply and the Agenda 21. And that sounds like an algorithm. Of course, it could be that somebody's proving me wrong, that they can't live algorithm type mute programs. They have to wait until it begins to process in their video processing program that they do right after a live broadcast.
I think I can get through here on the really blurry webcam. I wonder if you can put me through on video. Maybe not.
Okay, looks to me like you might be coming online there. Yeah, hey, you're back. Actually, you look like a Bigfoot, but hey, I think that's part of the program.
Yeah, well, I got a different camera, and it had a little bit of tape over it, so you might be looking through the stickiness, but I'm here.
All right, good to know, Jameson. So, where are you heading? Is this something that you do like full time? Is it a part time thing? I mean, is it taking more of your time? Are you finding yourself adding more time to this research?
That's a good question. I was really heavily at it the first 3 years. I mean, going deep, getting out there. I've had Sasquatch speak to me. I've heard samurai chatter. Like I said, I've been scared out of the woods. I've had some really tough experiences that, looking back, I'm like, man, I'm risking my life. But I've also found that they're a lot closer to humanity, so I don't necessarily need to go deep to have that Bigfoot experience, but going into the deep, deep woods is way different than searching suburbia. So, I'm working lately. I'm doing a lot of stuff, and I'm hosting this podcast. I'm editing it, so I'm not going and doing as many hikes. But then again, I've had a yearning to start riding my bike and get out there and start doing hikes and stuff. So I'm, as soon as I finish this garden that I'm working on and finish the flagstone path, I'm going to be going out and doing more stuff in the woods. But I just got to take care of some stuff in life. But who knows where I'm going with it? I'd like to publish a book of my structures. I'm thinking about possibly writing a book about my experiences, but it continues, and I'm just living life and kind of taking it as it comes. And I'm not on Facebook, and that limits me a lot too. So I'm I'm out there looking for people to contact me. I'm not really, asking anybody for much. I'm just posting my evidence and letting it speak for itself.
Are you anywhere in a position to be off grid?
No, sir, not really. Not right now. The economy is tough, and I am just surviving.
Let's rewind a little bit here. You threw a buzzword out to me, samurai chatter. What is that?
Well, I mean, Ron Moorhead obviously filmed minutes upon minutes of it, but I can impersonate it for you. I walked off trail, and I just thought, to be cordial, I would say hello, and instantly I got this response that says "Hoo-doo-ya!" and then bam, like hit a tree or something. I mean it, and I just stopped dead in my tracks, man. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, there's really one down there. And I was like, well, I know they're at this park, but I was walking on a different side of the park. But it was funny because it was at a time when every ungulate had a baby with it. The baby deer were walking right up the trail 5-6 feet from me till they realized, oh, there's a human, like, run away. But the moms were following the babies, like, come on. And everything had a baby. And then I saw this really depressed mama moose just sitting at the top when I walked back up on the trail. And in my head, I thought, Christ, I wonder if he's down there eating a little baby moose right now. Because every single ungulate that I saw, 5, 6, 7 of them, all the moms had twins, had babies, and here's this moose with no baby, just sitting there depressed, and nobody could see her. She was sitting in the shadow under a tree. People are like, what are you looking at? I'm like, there's a moose right there. They're like, whoa, holy crap, there's a moose. But you wouldn't have seen her. She was just hanging out moping. Made me wonder if Sasquatch got her baby.
Now, it's interesting. Earlier in the broadcast, the first hour, I played some audio captured in Georgia. Now, I did notice that faintly you can hear birds chirping. A lot of people say when there's Bigfoot activity, there is no bird. The bugs quit bugging and the birds stop chirping. Do you find that to be true?
I've never experienced that, but I think that would be like maybe when they were doing infrasound or low growl or something like that. I mean, it's funny. I'm pretty friendly with these things. I announce my presence when I walk in the woods. I don't try to sneak up on them, even though I know I kind of have, and I could. Like, I've gone off cliffs and listened, and I heard these bipedal footsteps one time, and that's where I got scared out of. But I was like, God, I should just run right in there and go down after this thing. But I don't do that. I kind of walk in the woods and I say, my friends, and I try to, like, with the tone of my voice, project, just a friendliness. Daniel, even when I saw that juvenile outside of my home, I followed it, and then when I lost it, I said, okay, it's right in the vicinity. I can't see it, but I know it can hear me. So I made this weird call. I was kind of like, like I made these weird noises to it, just kind of like, I want you to know, like, if you're going to run away from me, at least, like, know that I'm trying to, like, interact with you. Dude, there was a dead mouse on my driveway the next morning when I went out there. And I mean, like, it had a little poop in his butt, like something squeezed it. It didn't have any blood. It didn't have nothing bit it. Like, I'm just like, what is this
Thanks
mouse?
for sharing that.
But I took the thermal camera out into the grass, and I was trying to film the Sasquatch, but the oak trees and everything were like reflecting the infrared light, and I couldn't get any depth of field. And I'm like, God, if he's in there somewhere, I'm like, I can't pick him up anyway. And all these little mice were underneath my feet, and I was like almost stepping on them, and I was pussyfooting around him, and he was probably watching me and realized I'm like trying not to hurt a mouse. He probably killed one as a joke, like, here's a mouse, dude, like, you can kill him, like, you can eat him. Like, you don't have to throw it in the trash can like I did. But yeah, I don't know. They're I've seen that thing doing breaks around the house. That right there where I found that deer leg was right around the house too. The 2 deer legs. So I mean, the little things are around, and I kind of like don't think about it until I saw the thing, and then I'm like, God, I don't want to be out there staying up all night looking for it, getting all paranoid. But I do look out the window often, just thinking he might be out there. I leave food sometimes. The other day I left 3 piles of Cheerios. Every single one was gone. And I'm like, well, I left it late at night, and I didn't get up till like 10 o'clock. But still, I'm like, did the deer come get it? They could have, but usually they miss a couple, or the birds aren't going to get every single one. Something got every single Cheerio.
Well,
I don't know.
Well,
Don't know what to tell you.
Well, good to know the foot likes the Cheerio. By the way, Tammy Hall, Sunset Forever 29, Freely Speaking, Autumn in Albuquerque, and Jim Shook. I want to recognize y'all in the live chat. It looks like we're talking to Bigfoot, but it's actually Jameson had to use a secondary camera because they caught on to our program and they heard us getting into some taboo subjects. But we're always about the truth. I don't mind getting banned from YouTube because really I just wear that as a badge of honor. Jameson, how about you?
I dropped that truth like a rock on their head, Daniel.
All right. So back just I know we're getting toward the end of it, but the reason I asked you about the samurai is because when we were up in Glacier, we heard what sounded like a Japanese man yelling at a wolf in the middle of the forest. And we thought, what is going on out there? We were deep, deep, deep. There's no access roads. It was we were stuck there, and it was in this deep part of the forest. There's no roads there. It's just all mountainous forest and stuff. And we actually lowered the window down so we could get the pines, because we like to smell the pine trees. And then we heard this Japanese going, and it was a response. What's the guy? Is that Japanese guy walking his dog in the forest? We didn't know. I'm thinking we got a samurai squatch.
That's too awesome, man. That's a cool story. That is a cool story.
Yeah, man. I hesitate saying that because somebody said, well, you're in the media, or you want the notoriety and stuff. I risk saying things, and I'm sure you do. You risk telling somebody what you've seen, knowing what their response is, and how they'll attach some ulterior motive to what you're doing, just trying to make a buck. Okay, well, whatever. But, my credibility's on the line. But hey, I have to say it. It's true, and I didn't go looking for it. It just presented itself like that cast did, and like that footprint at Yellowstone. They presented themselves to me. It's like I'm not going to look away and say people think I'm crazy or made it up or trying to pull a hoax on something because I want something for the show. That's ridiculous.
No, of course, you got a lot of integrity, and I think you standing by the evidence or stating what you found shows more integrity than saying, oh, I'm just going to eat it and cover it up. You know what I mean? It's better just present it. If you think it's legit, just come on out and say it. But it is interesting when you find the evidence and you're not necessarily looking for it. You know what I mean? When I found that that leg right there, the reason I went back looking for it is because my stepdad was like, can you help me with something? And I'm like, yeah, what do you need? And he's like, there's a dead animal out here. And I'm like, oh, you want to clean it up, or like what happened? And he's like, well, something growled at me when I came home the other night. And I'm like, really? And he says, yeah, like I got out the car and I opened the door, and he's like, something's growled. So he said, I pulled forward a couple more feet closer to the door, and I got out and I walked to the front door, and I didn't go check till the next day what it was, because I want to have a flashlight. And then I decided I better not, because it's dark and something's growling at me. You know what I mean? And then I found a raccoon, but instead of like the jaw, goes like this on an animal, but it was snapped this way, like open. And that's how I find all these Bigfoot raccoon kills. They'll snap the jaw sideways. It's weird. Like one hinge will be unhinged, and I find that a ton of times. But I thought maybe something killed that raccoon, and so I cleaned that up, and then I went looking, and I found that on the property, and I was like, okay, this is too weird.
Mm-hmm. Well, that says something about the nature of paranormal activity, that squares don't happen in nature, and circles, say like in a rock stone, doesn't happen in nature. X's and configurations of sticks don't happen in nature by themselves. There's something out there, and it always seems that, for me, it's like I'm always kind of an after the fact person. I don't know, I can't get ahead of that and see this going on. Like the time we were going through the Arkansas deep forest, and all of a sudden we found hundreds of rocks stacked on rocks. I mean, I don't know. You could say somebody came through there and did that, but it would take them weeks. And the thing about that, Jameson, if you ever heard me tell that story, we crossed this bridge and on our four-wheelers and went riding up through the forest, and then we came back past that same bridge. We were the only ones out there. When we came back, those stones were there. They weren't there when we went up. And about an hour later, we came down, and there were hundreds of it. And I'm thinking, either we have a massive time slip, or we are on drugs or something, lost our sense, or we can't. Because like I said earlier in the first hour, I've trained myself to look for stuff because I know there's stuff out there. I know there's stuff happening. And if you're not looking for it, not expecting it, and you don't know what to look for, then you're never going to see nothing. And I think it's quite exciting to know that you're liable to see something. And but when we saw that, we were thinking, there's no way somebody came, followed us, stacked these rocks up, this high. I don't know if people can see that, all over this bridge, and then down in the creek.
That's an amazing story. Yeah, it's amazing the artistic mind or the human the human mind with these creatures. There's a picture. It's an upright rock that you had showed earlier, that I sent you, and it actually is a rock that was laying on the ground. I don't know if you can show it. Yeah. No, that to me is an interpretation of a Bigfoot face that they made. You can see the stone on the ground in front of it. They actually cracked it off what would be the right eye socket. So something hit that, broke off part of it so that it becomes like the muzzle with two eyes and the brow ridge. But that's kind of a blurry picture. It's not the best picture of it, but that to me was a depiction of this Sasquatch head. You could see behind it the impression of where that rock sat in the ground. It was recessed like a foot deep, but they had propped it upright, and it even has a conical head. That doesn't show the peak of it, and that's a bad angle. But I'm telling you, that is like a clear depiction of a Bigfoot head that they made.
Well, let me ask you something. Isn't this looks, I'm thinking I'm going to click on this picture here because I'm thinking this Squatch picture looks like that.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. Actually, I think it's
right there. That even looks even better. See how it's got the brow, they got the white in the middle of the face? That looks like kind of like that rock you're showing there.
When I saw that rock, it was without a doubt. Well, there's a guy, he's a Buddhist monk, and he actually contacted me. I studied his work online. He went and he was asked to take everything that he released from the internet because he released way too many Bigfoot secrets, and he had learned from Himalayan teachers, and this is like hundreds of year old knowledge that he did like 2 interviews with Vic Cundiff and another one with somebody else. Mm-hmm. They all took him down, but I've listened to those interviews over and over, and I studied what he was saying, and then he contacted me and he's like, dude, you get it. Like the artistic mind of the Bigfoot, I would find like a like a stump of a root that was like a ball, like a knot that looked exactly like a squirrel. It would have 2 eyes, a perfect little upside down strawberry shaped nose, a little mouth slit, and there were sticks like pointing at it, and I'm like, they're trying to show you, like, look at this little squirrel face. And I like film it, and then I was in the mountains. I found like a stone that looked exactly like a gigantic foot, 20 or 30 sticks all around it, but I put them all together in a video. And he contacted me and said, can you take this off the internet? Because I used a clip of the interview, and he's like, I'm supposed to take that off the internet, and I don't want to get in trouble with my teachers. He's like, but if you do take that off for me, you can come out to the state that I live, and I'll take you out at night and we'll meet Bigfoot together, because I know words to speak that I can call them, and it works every time, is what he told me.
All right. Jameson Duffy, a.k.a. Mr. Duffy 81 from the live chat here on the Edge broadcast. What can people find by going to your podcast? How do they get there? How often do you update your podcast? Anything like that?
Well, it is a weekly podcast. I took a week off because I have been so overwhelmed.
That's legal.
Kicking it 15 weeks straight, and I mean, it was like overwhelming. And we're going to be back at it next week. But yeah, unscriptedpodcast.com is the website. We have Unscripted podcast on Instagram, and we also have a TikTok, Unscripted, and it's UnsCryptid. So a little twist on the spelling, courtesy of Wayne Tutherow again. Genius on his part. But I just couldn't say no to the podcast because I was so tickled by the play on words. I thought it was genius. So I'm happy to be along for the ride, and we're doing a lot of work and looking for people. So give us a call and contact us.
Okay. All right. Well, Jameson Duffy, I appreciate you being on the Edge broadcast. Can we have you on again sometime?
Oh, most certainly. I got plenty of stories, and thank you for having me. And if you want to hear more paranormal stuff, I got that too. But yeah, anytime, Daniel.
All right. Sounds good. Take care.
God bless. Thank you.
God bless.